Hello and welcome back to the Defiant Spirit podcast and the Meaning Project podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel A. France, Dr. Dan, for those of you who are more into that whole brevity thing, with my good friend here, Rabbi Baruch Halevi, Rabbi B. As you know, when we get together, we are known as the dynamic duo of Rabbi B and Dr. D. B, it is great to be teaming up with you here again. How you been, man? It's been a little while.
Hey, brother. Yeah, it's been about at least a month, right? I mean, I don't remember when the last time we did one. It's crazy, like as we're recording this, it's mid-May, and when you have kids and all kinds of activities, this is like the busiest month on the calendar, as probably a lot of our listeners can relate to. Good stuff, though. All good.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Yeah, the fact that you reminded me it's been a month. I mean, a month without my good friend Rabbi B is just way too much time. And I have a feeling, even though I've gotten a lot of good feedback on some of the podcasts I've done, this is a welcome break for my listeners. They're like, yeah, bring that other guy in, because when you two are together, there's some good stuff that happens. People like hearing from us. So hopefully we get to do more of this.
Yeah, let's get it going. So I know we have a good topic today. We're going to talk about the meaning of money, but I want to hear what's going on with you professionally, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah. Well, like you said, so much good stuff. As a family man, busy times. One kid, one daughter, moving on in the next level of high school. One back from college. Both of them looking at, high school. You look at job opportunities. My daughter loves to she loves to spend money, so that requires making it sometimes. When your father is me, so she's looking at some job opportunities, doing different things. My older daughter, back from her sophomore year at college, um, thinking about following in dad's footsteps as long as mom doesn't interfere too much. Mom may not think that's a wise idea, but she actually has an amazing internship working with different areas of government in the mental health and substance abuse field. So we are connecting quite often. But I'll tell you what, man, after a busy day in the office, hearing about her busy day makes for two exhausting and busy days.
Sounds like it. What's going on with you professionally? Are you out there speaking? And
So, as many of those that follow me on social media know, I just came back from the Purpose Summit here at the University of Notre Dame. So, didn't speak there; was more as a participant, hearing some of the amazing speakers there, making some business connections. I'll be speaking to several of the businesses that were there. But I tell you what, after 3 days there, I highly recommend anybody in a job that listens to us should be there. It had a lot to do. Of course, the corporate word these days is purpose. But there were a lot of buzzwords that you and I are familiar with that the industry, the corporate world, the manufacturing world is just finding out about. And so it was really enlightening for me. Those that listen to me can look forward to hearing from that in the next week or so as I synthesize my notes and really put it together. It was a good and exciting time, and really refreshing to know that the corporate world, the business world, the manufacturing world are just now starting to understand these ideas and ideally apply it for the people that work for them.
I think part of that has to do with COVID. I think everything in these days, you can tie to COVID somehow. And what I'm seeing, at least, is people who got a taste of, I guess, maybe a breather at some level from the corporate world, working from home. I was just counseling a guy who is in a very high powered corporate job, but nobody wants to go back to the office. So they've agreed, I think, to go back 3 times a week, maybe. And that's a massive shift for some of these industries and companies. And I think they got a taste of purpose, of meaning, of the deeper stuff, and they're not willing to let go so easily, which I'm glad that they don't.
Absolutely. I'm hearing a lot of that as well. One of the cool things I was reminded of at this conference that we see a lot, guys like you and I, be, we are caught in the middle of this rift of the old guard, of the generation or two before us that went to work for 30 or 40 years, went there day in, day out, come rain or come shine, did the same thing for 40 years, got the gold watch and retired to go watch TV. In contrast is this generation of Generation Z and the millennials who say, no, I'm going to work and live life now or I'm not going to work. And that conflict between those two generations, I feel our generation is caught in the middle. And that's what a lot of this conference said, guys around our age saying, I looked at the old guard and how much they gave to work and how little they gave to themselves and their family. And yet I see these new guys come in and I say, hey, there's a middle ground there. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing, instigated by the COVID shutdown and work from home situation.
100%. I've been having this conversation a lot lately, maybe for the reasons we're talking about. I've mentioned before, I've done a lot of funerals when I was a rabbi, maybe 500 at last count, and so many of those were uber successful men in their professional lives. Then they retire, then their life comes to a screeching halt at 65, 70, whenever it is, and then you can just chart the descent into their demise. And it's partially because they were masters of their domain in this space, this time, and then they go into the complete unknown, unprepared, so jarring. They lose their purpose, they lose their why, as our teacher, Dr. Frankl, talks about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our generation looks at that going, hell no,
Mm-mm.
not going to happen.
Mm-mm. I remember my grandfather, a big, burly monster of a man in my eyes, whom I adored for his work ethic. I would go to work with him every once in a while, and he was a farmer and then worked in a dairy, and boy, it was awesome. And then he did that for decades. And the funny thing I remember is his chairs at home. The older people back in those days had the two lazy boys, one for grandma, one for grandpa, had no wear and tear on them. But when he retired, man, that chair got a lot of work. And he went from this big, burly, muscle-bound, German man to a frail old man. And he didn't cultivate other interests, didn't have those other things outside of work. And I think that's what our generation is learning, and the millennials are certainly learning from us. Live life, cultivate interests. I like to say, be Vitruvian, as the great Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. Have a lot of interest, things that give you meaning.
So, that's a nice segue into money, because right now, as we're recording this, it is a tumultuous time. If you follow the stock markets, if you have money in the markets, if you don't have money in the markets, and you're watching your paycheck be worth less and less, or, just practical things. Like I went to fill up my RV with diesel gas last week, and holy moly, it's just outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's feeling the pinch, the squeeze, and the fear around money. It's palpable.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought it would be a worthy conversation, maybe multiple conversations, to talk about what is this thing, money? What is it that, is stirred up within us that is just so afraid, conflicted? There's so many different feelings when it comes down to money.
I jokingly but somewhat seriously say to couples I work with, first of all, we know money, finances, the lack of communication and the differing values around money is one of the top three, usually the number one conflict point in couples. And so to mitigate that, I tell a lot of couples, I say, look, money is just little green pieces of paper that have a lot of emotion behind them.
It's not even green. It's not even green pieces of paper anymore. It's just, digits on a screen.
Right. We're going that whole sci-fi world where it's just numbers on a screen that, what do they really mean? Well, it means I worked this week and I put a lot of time and effort into it, and I have the ability to engage. It's the ability really to go full logotherapy on it. Money gives us the ability to discover meaning. It allows us to acquire resources or engage in activity. But I believe, the positive numbers on that screen, the more green pieces of paper you have, the more you get to do, the more you get to material you get to accumulate. Conversely, in times like this, in times of suffering, in times of fear, as we've talked about, in times of difficulty, Difficulty suffering from money also gives us the ability to find meaning in other ways.
So I love the word. As I've shared many times, I just love language and what you can pull out of words. And let's just start there, because money oftentimes is referred to as a means, right? Your means, a man of woman of means. And it's interesting when you start looking at different words for money, they revolve around movement. Means is a process. It's not an end, it's a means. It's a stepping stone to something else. Money is inherently meaningless. It is just paper, it's just decimals. It's what it represents,
Mhm.
right? An exchange of energy, an exchange of transaction, an agreed upon system. But then you look at other words, means, currency, as in
Mhm.
electricity, which is a current, right, of a movement. In
Mhm.
Hebrew, damim is an ancient word for, it means blood, which was life force, life flow, right?
Mm.
This energetic system. And that's money at its best, right? When it is this moving means, not an end. And I see what happens when we forget that and we turned it into an end. It's about the money. It's about
Mhm.
how much you have in the bank versus what I can do with that money in the bank.
Right. Right. That's absolutely right. It is, it's, we all need to have that backup for different difficult times. We need to have a little bit in the bank in savings, but I think sometimes we get a little too consumed with how much we can accumulate rather than what we are doing with it. Are we using that money to live a meaningful life for ourselves, for those closest to us, for others, for our communities? And it doesn't always take money to do those kinds of things, but that's what we're talking about today.
And so when you remember, you just, because it's so easy to forget. I mean, I read a book and it said, count how many times money comes up during your day. And I didn't think it would be that many. But when you start factoring in, the moment you get on social media and an ad pops up, you're thinking about, oh, buying that. Oh, but I can't buy, Amazon. I don't know about
Mhm.
your house, but Amazon seems to, like, I feel like he, should have a key to my house and come in for dinner like half the time.
Yeah.
Because it's such a frequent part. And there's, obviously money transaction involved all day, every day. We're thinking about this thing and we forget, what is it? What
Right.
is it for? What is the means, that I'm working so hard, and how can I take back some of my power from this thing that is so pervasive in my life and I don't even think about it.
Well, as I was reminded at the Purpose Summit, and I try to do personally, they reminded us, I was reminded by a particular speaker, as soon as you look at that screen in the morning, you are giving your power, your life over to somebody else. Whether it's even answering emails, hopping on Amazon, looking at, when you're on, as soon as you turn it on, I think we've talked about surveillance capitalism. It is going to try to sell you something within the first few minutes. So, one way to take power back is not to do that, but then to also cultivate a different, more meaningful morning routine. I know when I spend time with others on journeys, on trips, or even in my own home, when I see somebody go to their phone the very first thing in the morning, it really does. It hurts my very soul. I'm sad because all the research, all of the books on success say, don't do that. Give yourself an hour just to you, to your maker, to God, to the universe, to do something first spiritual, something for yourself, to go look at the sunrise, to get out in nature, to play with the dog, to read something that builds you up rather than to immediately give yourself and your attention over to something that will corrupt it. And that's our phones and our laptops.
So I just had this conversation with a client who is very close to the market, follows it, daily. And if you're following the market these days, like, it really is tumultuous.
Mhm.
And, you're talking thousands, if you have money in the market, thousands of dollars lost in a single day. And he
Mhm.
keeps talking about it. He keeps focusing on it. He's probably checking his phone 10 times a day to see what the market's doing. And that's 10 times of recreating the panic and the fear. And you can see every time it's like living a trauma. And so
Yes.
now do that 10 times a day, 7 days a week, 70 times this week. You felt you had a traumatic experience.
Hmm.
Of course, you're going to feel depleted. Now, I'm
Hmm.
not saying put your head in the sand, but be conscious,
Yeah,
right? Make a choice, like you're saying, Dan. Make a choice when you're going on the internet to stand guard against that.
absolutely. It's interesting. I remember, talking to, the person I hand my retirement money over to every month, right? First of all, we should all be planning for retirement, um, but not always banking on it, right? I think we were talking about that difference between giving you, well, we talked working for 40 years versus working while living while working in this generation. But my advisor said, "Hey, I just want to warn you." I said, "No, I know, right? Like this is not the time in history to be looking at your investments on a daily basis. We know they're going to go down. That is if you study investing whatsoever, that is the nature of the market. It goes up and down over time throughout history. It goes up more than it goes down. This is just one of those difficult times. Why traumatize yourself?" My question for that individual and for anybody that does that is it really is why. What do you associate with those numbers? For many of us, it's something so far in the future, right? I have those numbers there. I have those green pieces of paper in an investment for what I think I might want to do in 20, 30, 40 years.
But that's part of the conversation I had with him, is that we have to get back to what is the the meaning of the money,
Hmm.
as opposed to, oh my God, my portfolio is down 20%. What does that mean?
Right.
Well, we started talking, and for him, money is freedom to do what he
Hmm.
wants. And
Hmm.
I said, how ironic, because you don't feel free right now. Whether it goes up or down, you feel imprisoned by the
Hmm.
very thing that you're focusing on to bring you freedom. Like, let's
Right.
play that craziness out.
Right. And so what does freedom really look like? And so often we talk to people like, yes, when I have it, when I reach this point, when I have this much, I will be free. Free from what? Right? As the good doctor tells us, we are never free from conditions, but we are always free to choose how we see those conditions, how we relate to them, what our attitude is. We cannot control the outside world. We can plan for it. We can continue to put money away and educate ourselves. The most important thing we have is the ability to choose our attitude towards it.
And one of the things we talked about, because we were really digging down into this. As an aside, I've done this focus on merging Dr. Frankl's work in the Enneagram called Defy
Mhm.
Your Number. And now that's up and out there, and it's great. But I'm moving it over to the financial world and working with my friend Michael Feiner of Feiner Wealth Management. And we're looking at how to apply these principles to the financial markets, how you invest money, the types of reactions versus response different Enneagram types have to their money. I was talking to this guy who's an Enneagram 7. For those of you who are listening, it's the enthusiast, it's the forward thinking, future possibility. And he said, I'm just so overwhelmed by the money because loss of freedom. And that's a big thing to a 7. And he wants to be able to pass on this wealth to his children and his
Mm.
children's children, give them that freedom. But one of the things we talked about was, but they're watching you right now. We'll call him Joe. Joe, they're watching you right now of how you handle this, because you don't look free. You look tired and depleted and afraid. And that's what you're passing on. In addition to your wealth or your lack thereof, you're passing on this message of how to react or respond to the markets. And it was like
Mhm.
a light bulb goes off for him. The
Mhm.
means matters, right?
Mhm.
How you approach your money is as important as the money itself.
Well, and what we give our children now in the moment, what we role model for them today is far more important than what we can give to them in 20 years.
Right. The inheritance is happening as we're speaking, regardless of the money. That's, you say inheritance. Most people just think cha-ching, right? And
Right.
it's a fraction. Maybe you inherit nothing financially. My grandma Flo, left no financial means, but she was the most joyous spirit I know. And I think of her all the time and just feel that joy, right?
Hmm.
So I had another grandfather who had means, but he didn't leave the joy. And what's the inheritance? Yes, finances are important, but it's not the only inheritance.
Right. And let's talk about that. Why are they important? Well, if we go down one path, they give us a means to discover meaning. They give us an opportunity to discover meaning. But we can discover meaning with money or without it. Either way, we have a choice. Going back to, we can choose that meaning of the moment to discover meaning with or without uh, money, like we did during the COVID times. We had the ability to discover meaning in some of the most difficult times in recent history, by either banding together as a family and saying, "Hey, let's do more together, play games. We are all stuck in this house together. Nobody's going anywhere. What can we do with it?" Or we could have discovered meaning another way and lament it and feel sad and down and disconnected.
It's all about being conscious and intention. Another piece of that is that money. We were so conflicted around money. We have like these mixed messages, right? Somehow it's sinful, it's corrupting, it's a source of strife and all kinds of negative stuff. Whether people are conscious of that, it's in the background. I hear it all the time. Money has no meaning. It is just paper. It's like we talked about. It's just decimals on a screen. It's amoral. It has no moral value. It has no meaning value, except what we use it for.
Mhm.
It's a means to be. If you can use money to do something immoral, you can use it to do something moral. The question is, what do you do with it, and
Mhm.
what does it do to you in the process? And that's where we need to stand guard and choose, as Dr. Frankl said, choose our own way,
Mhm.
choose what we believe about the money and how we want to use the money.
Absolutely. It's ironic you bring that up, B. For those of you watching on the YouTube channel, you can see this brightly colored Hawaiian shirt that I'm wearing. And I did this on purpose because when you said, let's talk about money, I said, you know what? When I think about money, I think about Hawaiian shirts because I think about Hawaii. And for many of us, that connotation, travel, discovering meaning through experience is an opportunity. In my personal experience, I never thought I would be able, I would go to Hawaii or take my family. And last year, we came to a point, not just through money, but through playing the credit card game wisely. We had the opportunity to go. And my family said, yeah, let's do that. And I felt it was a great blessing, first of all, through choices I had made and had the ability to do that. And I understand not everybody does. But I feel like if you set a goal and you work towards it, I truly believe anybody, if you have a goal of travel, can do it. It's a meaningful goal to be able to do in a worthwhile experience. But as you said, for others, there is that connotation. And I'm sure there may be that connotation to some people listening right now that, oh, well, you say that because you have money. Well, I have some money because I have worked in ways to earn it. But trust me, it's not as though being a therapist in Farmville, Indiana, married to an elementary school teacher, makes us prolifically wealthy. We've learned some lessons along the way to be able to do things for our daughters. But there are, and I can think of some people right now. I remember when we decided to go last year, my poor wife had this attitude of, well, there's certain people we can tell and there's certain people we cannot because of the attitudes they might have because of their assumptions about money. And I just thought, wow, that is such a long train of mental gymnastics to be able to get there. And what an indication of the connotation, the emotional energy behind money and what we choose to do with it.
There's first of all, I think of Magnum PI when I look at you. Just missing the hair, but you got the Magnum PI thing going.
I'm going for the full stash now, B. I mean, that's a great idea. I don't think I'll ever again have the Magnum PI hair.
Yes, those days, that ship has sailed. It's also not true. I don't care what's people will say to me all the time, I can't afford it. And I don't care what you're talking about. I can't. Is that true? If somebody's listening right now, say, well, I can't afford to travel. Is that true? Maybe it's not Hawaii. Maybe it's Lincoln, Nebraska. God help you. I'm from Omaha. Maybe it's to go down the street, to whatever, have an experience. But checking our poverty consciousness at the door, because there's so much in our programming that says, oh, I can't afford that. And I'm not even talking about, like exotic expenses, but little things. I can't afford that. Is that true? Or is it you don't value that particular thing, that particular purchase? I can't afford, fill in the blank. Really checking the way we talk about our money, the way we think about our money, because I see over and over again people just going to this poverty consciousness when in fact it's not always factually the case.
I agree with you completely. That reminds me of those that say, well, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to eat healthy. We all have the same amount of time in every day. We just prioritize differently. So don't tell me you don't have time. Admit it to yourself, take responsibility and say, hey, that's not a priority right now. I'm okay with that. Same goes for those things in life you want to do with money. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's absolutely right. I was just saying amen.
Yeah, it really is a matter of if it's a priority. I'm a big believer. I have always hated that idea of I can't afford it. From the times I was a public employee to the times I was in community mental health, and even today, especially in the world we live in today, we have more opportunity to go out and earn money through side hustles, Grubhub, Lyft, driving, learning how, if you want to make a lot of money, go learn how to program or design websites, put yourself on an upwork.com, and you'll have business rolling in all over the place. The idea that I can't afford it tells me I just don't want to spend the time to build the ability to do that. And that's okay. It's a choice.
It's okay.
But be honest with yourself. Take
That's
responsibility.
Right. I say that all the time to the people I'm counseling and working with. Just tell the truth to yourself, because the moment you start believing your own lies or half truths or sort of truths, you've really lost your direction. I'd rather look myself in the mirror and say, the truth is I'm not giving to this charity because I don't find value in this particular charitable cause right now. And I'd rather, this happened to me when I was a congregational rabbi. It was synagogue dues work differently than churches. We have kind of membership models, for better and worse, I think for worse, but it is what it is. Let's say it was $1,000 for the year, whatever it was. Somebody said to me, I can't afford it. And I said, look, I don't begrudge you for not wanting to belong, but do you go on dates with your spouse? Yes. How often? Once a month. Where do you go? To the movies and dinner and a babysitter. Do the math. That's more than what we're talking about for membership. So that's totally fine. Tell yourself the truth that that's more important and you prioritize that higher. Great. But be honest with yourself and don't say I can't afford it, because that becomes your reality.
This might lose some listeners and be unpopular, but I want people to hear it. When you say I can't, it gives you permission to blame others, right? To look at, well, the man is keeping me down. The boss doesn't pay me enough. I can't get there because I don't make an hourly wage. When you take responsibility and say it's not a priority, then you take responsibility. You admit to yourself, you give yourself the opportunity to look at your priorities, and then you choose, do I want to reorganize my priorities? I've got a great story. Talking to a young man in the past couple of weeks, not a high-paying job. He waits tables at the local favorite Mexican restaurant. So he does pretty all right. Congenial kid, enjoyable, right? Sure, he makes some good tip money, but he's not bringing home $200,000 a year. But he said, man, Doc, I've always wanted to go to Italy. I said, all right, when are you going to go? And he started him, well, maybe 5. I said, stop it. I said, man, you can do that this year if you want to, or at least within the year. And he looked at me like I was the crazy one. And I said, come on, here's your homework. Go home, just do the research. He did the research. He came back. He said, man, that's not expensive. I said, exactly. You educated yourself. All right, how long would it take you to earn that? He said, And this is a young kid. He's living with his parents still, and rightfully so. He's still getting out there. So we factored in, hey, I want to move out too. 6 months, want to move out, want to go to Italy with a friend. Here's a couple $1,000s. Here's when I can earn that. I said, man, you just prioritize that and you're going to make it happen. He came back the next week. I said, so how'd the homework go? He said, Doc, we're going to go in September. So, whoa, you accelerated my plan for you. He said, I know, I made my own plan. There you go, man. There you go. He made it a priority.
Yeah, I call that taking back your power from money. It's just so easy to say, I can't afford it, as opposed to, what's the truth about this? What am I going to have to sacrifice to get over here, to get over here? How do I take back my power? Or just in general around money, I see us just handing it over to, again, those pixels on the screen, or those paper in our wallet. It's paper, it's pixels. Don't give your power to anything. Right? Especially something as trivial as a piece of paper at the end of the day.
Well, and those pixels, I tell you what, the more you look at them, the more enticing they get, because there are a lot of evil us's, a lot of evil psychologists and counselors. And I don't know, maybe, I don't think there's a such thing as evil rabbis, but a lot of evil geniuses behind making those pixels seem masterfully appealing. And again, I've talked about what Johann Hari calls the surveillance economy, surveillance capitalism. That device, those pixels, are seeking the centers of your brain that make you want to pull out your wallet and throw money at it. Stop doing it. It's a choice. All of this comes down to what the good doctor tells us. We have the opportunity to choose every moment. We can choose meaning or not, but take responsibility for those choices and choose responsibly. Choose meaning.
Amen. I think that's a perfect place to end, as your friend just finishes up his half-hour jog.
Did he? Well, so for him these days, that's probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles. I hope he's getting a little faster and a little smaller, but I'm sure I'll find out here soon, because I'm about to get a text after that one.
Sounds good. Well, it's always a pleasure to get back into the saddle and have our Dr. Viktor Frankl, all things Dr. Viktor Frankl conversations.
Absolutely, man. As always, it's a pleasure. Love doing it with you, buddy.
How can my followers get to you again?
Yeah, absolutely. Check me out at danielafranz.com, DanielAFranz.com. I am focusing on just 2 socials these days. That would be LinkedIn and Facebook. You can hop on the website, find those, find the podcast, all that fun stuff. B, how can my listeners get to know more about what you're doing and that amazing Enneagram project you're working on?
Well, first of all, I want to see if any of the listeners can buy Hawaiian shirts at your website. Is that yet a thing?
Man, no, but they can buy these gnarly The Meaning Project podcast,
Perfect.
coffee mugs, t-shirts, sweatshirts. We got all the swag, bro.
Thanks, Magnum. Sounds good. Yeah, my people are, anybody who wants to find me can get over to defiantspirit.org, defiantspirit.org, and I would love to connect with you on all things Viktor Frankl or the Enneagram. So thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you in our next podcast.
Awesome. Take care, B.
Peace out.